I fully respect why the ward system was set up originally in Cambridge. I think there's a lot of legacy there that we need to be mindful of. There is still tremendous pride in your neighborhood, and by all intents and purposes, as small as Cambridge is, it's two neighborhoods. It's the city, which is one neighborhood, but it also, talking to people, there are generally some specific concerns for just your ward. And it's helpful to have at least someone that you feel, even though we all need to be focused on the health of the city entirely, there's definitely some value in knowing that, maybe there's some specific things for your particular neck of the woods. Like the biggest expenditure is that we are addressing a very difficult problem of sewer overflows into the Chop Tank River. That's going to be a $20 million spend just for phase one of that project. Fortunately, there's grant money, but there will be money that's raised through the sewer and water fund as well. That's huge because when I think about why Cambridge exists, it's because of this river, and it not only affects this town, but it affects the quality of life of neighboring communities and the whole region. And honestly, because we export seafood, a much larger swath. So that's a big one because that's one of the primary reasons the city exists is clean water uh, and potable water and effective health and sanitary systems. So we cannot ignore that. And we've made a commitment to make the hard choice not to. The other thing is a pivot to community policing, which, there's so much of a burden and struggle in healthcare, school systems, police forces, fire departments, all of these public service agencies that just it's a national problem. And it's something that's not unique here, but how we adapt and address those problems is important. So we've asked our police department what we can do, and it's been two-pronged. One is, we are supporting their efforts to get to know the community better and to shift the way they approach policing. And then the other thing, in the absence of being able to hire people, if people don't want to be police officers in Cambridge, it doesn't matter what we offer them. But what we can do is we can supplement them with the best of breed technology to make their lives easier. And the ShotSpotter program has been tremendous in preventing illegal firearms and firearms discharging in the city. Our officers have this system in place where if a firearm is discharged, they know about it the minute it happens, it pinpoints it, and they can respond. And it has resulted in just in the last couple of months, I think 8 arrests with firearms recovered. So that's sending a powerful message that Cambridge is not safe for you as a criminal. It's safe for the citizens, more safe for the citizens. And I think sending that warning that you're just not going to be able to get away with things like that in Cambridge is important. And that's things we can do to really make our officers' lives easier. And so that's another big accomplishment. And then we were fortunate. It was a blessing and a curse, the COVID money, but the ability to supplement some of the nonprofits that do so much of the work that government can't do. Just in all situations, the ability to supplement them and everything from environmental causes to youth services it was very rewarding, very difficult, sort of like money falling out of the sky, but we were very careful to make sure that we had a rubric that identified organizations that had staying power and were force multipliers for the community. So that dollar wasn't going to cost us two. It was going to multiply in value when we provided it. So that's another thing. I could go on, but I don't want to take up all our time on everything I'm excited about.
Well,
I the one of the fundamental things that we really need to get accomplished in the next 2 years is we need to get our neighborhood revitalization plan in place. And an offshoot of that is something called tiered rental licensing. Cambridge is the vast majority of properties are rentals, and a lot of the rental housing stock is of low quality. And I'm not going to blame anyone in particular for that, because it's largely just the system is broken. However, there are some fundamental things that we need to do to be able to measure progress with housing. And we also need to make sure that there's some accountability and ability to measure sidewalk improvement, revolving funds to provide repairs for people that can't afford it, to fund our land bank, which is something that's brand new that we need to implement in the next 2 years, which instead of properties continuing to fall into the next lowest bidder and experience generations of decline, we will actually amass properties, put rules around their development, help streamline the redevelopment of properties and neighborhoods that will be healthy and vibrant. And all of this takes people, it takes systems, and it takes the ability to measure whether you're actually making progress. It's easier said than done. As a politician, you do not have a magic wand, and most things take good people, good leadership, and investment in the right place. And it's a long, slow process of just, we eat the elephant one bite at a time, and I guess to use another cliche, we build back the house one brick at a time. And I really, if we can maintain this council and the executive leadership we have, we will make significant progress in the next 2 years. So my biggest fear is that all that gets disrupted. We lost our mayor, as you know. We had a global pandemic. We've had some very interesting problems that aren't even, like everything from the police problems to all these structural problems with healthcare and with school systems and all of that everyone's having. So we're kind of, having to put our finger in the wall that's holding back the flood, at the same time trying to think our way around it. So we call it building a pipeline instead of hauling water buckets. So initially, I was like everyone else. I was like, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. It's perfect where it is right now. It's got all this space around it. It's next to the Sandy Hill school fields. It's a real community asset, all of those things. And so I went, people, the biggest problem as an elected official, one of them is that people think that you always know more than they do. And I can tell you that we found out about it about the same time everyone else did, because the way that the waterfront development was working was Cambridge Waterfront Development Incorporated had a plan built that was based on what the community said they wanted, largely green space and some certain elements that sit on that property, right? And then they solicited requests for proposals. And one of the beauties of this plan is that it allows individual elements to populate the property slowly. You put the framework for what you want to see, what the community wants to see, and then you slowly fill it in. Unlike this master development, which may succeed big or fail big. This can be incremental development, which is back to my original thing about healthy ways for cities to evolve. You can make little mistakes and little improvements instead of, destroying, or, you may have big successes, but they're much more rare than the big failures. So all that to say, the why happened to, and I'm submit an RFP, which kind of creeped into the public realm when Cambridge Association of Neighborhoods invited or had their annual meeting at the YMCA. So I went there and I'm learning to listen, and I just sat because I just wanted to learn. I'm like, what is this all about, right? And it was my ward where the Y is, and I'm assuming I'm elected, it'll be my ward potentially where the Y would have been going. So what I heard there is, and this isn't taking sides, it is the YMCA, and people disagreed because they're like, well, statistics and surveys can tell you anything you want to hear, which is true. I cannot disagree with that. However, the Y is a very professional and sophisticated organization, and they have the problem of many businesses in that they have to attract members and grow their membership to survive. And what they've been doing, at least in two other locations on the Eastern Shore, is Chestertown and soon to be Centerville. Chestertown, they built a brand new Y, and they followed the advice of an organization that has given them basically done studies. And I guess a survey was a component of this, which only one person in the room even had been contacted for the survey, but that's how statistics work. You don't have to interview everyone. But this survey came back based on 3 locations that they had sort of narrowed in, which was renovate where they are. What would that cost? What do our membership look like if we do that? Route 16, which is out by the high school. And then I think the other location was, well, I know the other location was the Cambridge waterfront development. Well, what this survey came back for them, and the recommendation of the consultant was the waterfront. Now, of course, people are like, oh, what wouldn't want to be on the waterfront, you know? And I can't disagree with them. I mean, it's like, yeah, I mean, why not? So that, why not? Sorry about that. The other component is and this is me, this is not Brian Roche. This is me talking to Robbie Gill, the CEO, just trying to understand, you know, what's happening in his mind, because it's his job to make the Y succeed. We want to do this location. If we moved it here, we're being told we would like triple our membership. He said, we don't take on debt. So if we were to do anything or go anywhere, our donors have to be willing to pay for it. And I'm like, well, why don't you take on debt? Well, as the Y, it's our mission to never be kind of like under the thumb of debt, because we like to offer scholarships. We like to have our memberships go back into operational costs, those types of things. So we don't want to be saddled with that. And this location just hit all the check boxes. So question number 2 is, well, all right, you know, what wouldn't, you know, on the waterfront, of course, it's not going to generate tax revenue, whatever. So, you know, there's a guy, Lou Oliver, who's also part of this Congress for New Urbanism, who was one of the consultants, and we were lucky to have him on. He's built neighborhoods all over the country that have had tremendous success. And I'm not talking about like a housing development. I'm talking about building a place that people want to live. And from what I understand, he was in favor of it too, because CWDI, you know, I'm fairly certain that, you know, they are responsible for the success of the property, and they want to make sure that they don't do something that's detrimental to the revenue they can generate or the success of the development. So, you know, they brought, you know, they asked that hard question too. And the theory, and I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with this move, I'm just saying what I've learned is that this would be with CWDI having the responsibility to lift all boats in that neighborhood, and for the city, downtown, everything it's connected to. I mean, this is not a project that will be isolated at all, like other housing developments. It is to be an integral part of the city. It would be a real asset to their property. That said, the corollary is a very valid fear, and it's also a fear of mine, is what would happen to the property where it is in the event it moves. I don't think this is a done deal. I think that they submitted an RFP and they did the work to make sure it was something they even wanted to consider. But we would have to absolutely make sure that the tax base and whatever went back in the event that this even happened in the Somerset neighborhood where the Y exists. If the Y so chose to move, and it is their choice. I mean, it's not a government organization. We as government would have to make sure that that property that they left was really approached in a way that made the neighborhood better, that whatever went back was even better than having the Y there. And a lot of that would just be probably, you know, I've heard subdividing a lot, a pocket park, certain amenities and things that really would, just like Lou Oliver has designed the Cambridge waterfront development so that it will be a successful neighborhood that's grows incrementally. This would have to be compatible and lift up the whole Somerset, Talbot, and even that whole end of town that benefits from the Wise location now. So, yep. So my biggest concern with this is that because it's sort of a small scale election, it's only 2 wards, it's not the whole city, is that people do not vote. And the last election was 100% mail-in ballot, and we had the biggest turnout in the history of Cambridge. This election may be decided by 10 votes, if history's a lesson. And that to me is scary, because I would want to know whoever wins has the glowing endorsement of the community that they're representing. And I certainly, plead that I get allowed to finish my 2 years, and then we'll decide what's next after then, because we got a lot of going, and I would hate to see the momentum disrupted.
Well, thank you so much. Good luck. And I'll be checking in with you after the election.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. I really appreciate it.